Hello, BookTube. It's Tuesday, and I thought I'd go through some poetry books I have, more recent editions. I've been asked a few times regarding this. I'll do two types of things with poetry as time goes on. I'll show off some of these more recent ones, recent published editions, and then I will go through and I'll make videos of my favorite poets and say why they're my favorite poets. And I'll start doing that occasionally because there's quite a few, and that should be fun. But I think I'm going to have to split this in two videos, and they might go to 30 minutes, but my phone will not go over 30 minutes. It'll shut off exactly at 30 minutes for some reason. So, let's start, and we'll start with some anthologies. This is a massive tome, The Poets of the Italian Diaspora. It's by Fordham University Press. It's published in 2014. As you can see, this is a paperback version, a big paperback version. It's over 1,500 pages. It's just amazing. And some really great poetry. I'd love to get this in hardcover someday. And it goes by country to country. It's literally exactly what it says. Italian poets who have migrated out of Italy and immigrated to other countries around the world. And it's got Argentina, Australia, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, Croatia and Slovenia, France, Germany, Switzerland, United States, and Venezuela. And it's got a little, there's no index or anything like that. There's very little, there is a little essay for each country, but very little supplementary work, as you can imagine with something this size. And it's a little different. Usually on the left-hand side, you've got yes, sorry, I'm thinking of a different book. Yeah, you've got the original on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side, you got the translation as normal. I'll show you a book that's the opposite, which is very strange. But yeah, it's some lovely poetry there. And again, it's not something that I've read from cover to cover, and I don't expect to anytime soon. Yesterday I was mentioning with the T.S. Eliot books of how the scholarship was on that, and just mentioning something else that was just amazing is this, the complete Old English poems. And I forgot the publisher, but it's Pennsylvania State University. It's translated by Craig Williamson, introduction by Tom Shipley, and was published in 2017, and it's chock full of stuff. It's amazing. There's a bit of supplementary material, but very little with regards to, there's an introduction and so forth. If it was something like the T.S. Eliot's, we're talking something this size, which is 1,200 pages. We're talking another 6 or 8 volumes of 1,200 page books. That would equal something like that, if not more. But it doesn't have that. It doesn't need that. It would be nice to have a little more, but that's where, as I read this, I will probably search out a little more supplementary material on the poems that I want to learn more about. And continuing with anthologies, we've got London, the Belknap Press of Harvard University Press, and this is a history in verse, edited by Mark Ford. It was published in 2012, and yeah, it just goes through chronologically. There it is around 1330-ish. To John Gower poem, or part of from Confessio Amantis, He lives approximately 1330 to 1408, so that's the earliest, and it just goes right, and I believe it comes right up quite recent. It's quite a big contents page. Yeah, so you got even some people, they're born in the 80s, that they've got some poetry here. So it's got a lot of width and breadth and depth to it. And it's 700 plus pages with the index. And I have so many here that it's just unwielding, so bear with me. This is the Penguin Book of Irish Poetry, edited by Patrick Crotty. And it's a massive tome as well. All these books are. And this was published in 2010. And it's got a preface by Seamus Heaney. And yeah, it's like the first section is writing out of doors, earliest times to 1200. It's just got anonymous poems and so forth. Part 2 is There Was No Land on Earth Its Peer, 1201 to 1600. Part 3, Civilization, 1601 to 1800. Part 4, Song, to 1800. Not sure where part 5 is here. I've lost part 5. That's part 4. I saw part 6, but I didn't see. Oh, there, part 5. Union and Dissension, 1801 to 1880. Part 6, Revival, 1881 to 1921. Part 7, The Sea of Disappointment, 22 to 1970. And Transformation, 71 to 2009. It's just a table of contents is 40 some pages long. And it's just quite amazing, and it's 1,000 pages long. Another Penguin. It's the new Penguin book of English verse. I'm not thrilled about the cover, the design. I've got it in paperback, and it's well worn. It's a very, very good collection. It's like the Oxford English verse book. It does the exact same purpose, and it goes through time period, as you can see in the table of contents. You can see the dates, and it just goes on and on and on. Again, it's a large table of contents. Comes right up to modern, like the 80s, 90s, possibly even 2000, let's see, 1994 it goes up to. And it's about 8 pages is the table of contents. It's edited by Paul Keegan and published in 2000. Yeah, 2000. It runs into a little over 1,100 pages long. And the last anthology, yes, I think it's the last anthology. I've showed it before. It's something that I'm currently pecking my way through slowly. Some wonderful poems in this. Again, I do want this in hardcover sometime. British Women Poets of the Long 18th Century, Johns Hopkins University Press. Edited by Paula R. Backscheider and Catherine E. Ingrassia. And it was published in 2009, and it is 900 pages long. And I mean, it is just wonderful, wonderful poetry through here. And the introduction is just marvelous too. Because a lot of this poetry by women authors has not been reprinted since it came out either in book form or in periodicals during the 18th century, and you just don't see this too much. it's only recently that they've started digging into female poets, which there were plenty of them all through history. But at some point during the late Victorian times, they were sort of forgotten, sadly. But they're coming back. And then there's as I said, I think I said, I meant to say that I buy a lot of this stuff is new or remainder, which essentially are new. And most of the authors I'm aware of, but there's a few that I was not aware of when I bought them. And here's one, C.P. Cavafy, Complete Poems and Unfinished Poems, translated with an introduction and commentary by Daniel Mendelssohn. It was used, and I picked it up because it's like he's no modern poet brought so vividly to life his history and culture of Mediterranean antiquity. So that had me right there. So I looked through and I thought, yeah, there's some interesting poetry in here. And it doesn't give the original. The original language is just the straight translation. It's published by Harper Press. 2013, and he lived from 1863 to 1933. Yeah, 1933. But he was a poet that I was not familiar with. He is yeah, he's Greek. He's a Greek poet. But yeah, so that's a perfect example of stumbling on something that looks really good, and I'm enjoying that as when I get to it. Again, this was somebody else that I was not familiar with, but it was came up in a Remainder house online. It's a beautifully produced book because it's cloth bound. And it's the poems and plays of Oliver St. John Guardi, collected and annotated by A. Norman Jeffries. Beautiful end papers with facsimile of some of his manuscripts. And it is published by, I can't read the imprint there, TJ, oh, wait a minute, no, it's printed. Can't really read this for the Colin Smith Limited. Yeah, Colin Smith Limited. I'm just not familiar with that. It's an interesting imprint. It's published in 2001, and it goes through all his poetry and plays. There's references to where is it here? Because there's references to a few other poets here, but I can't find it now. Yeah, no, sorry. I thought I saw something, but I don't think I did. But yeah, no, it just there. Oh yeah, it's prefaced by W.B. Yeats. Prefaced by Horace Reynolds, and general introduction by Norman Jeffries. So there's some good names there, and yeah, that is another one there. And here's another one that I was slightly familiar with as an author. Sorley MacLean. I can't pronounce the rest. There's other names. Summarily McGill Ian. Collected poems edited by Christopher White and Emma Dimock. And Polygon is the publisher. Berlin Limited, imprint of. Published. I'm looking for a year here. See, copyright symbol, 2011. And yeah, just huge. He was generally recognized as the most significant writer in Scottish Gaelic of the 20th century. Now, this is the one I was talking about. English on the left side and the Scottish Gaelic on the right, which is a little different. That runs into... it's a short one, just over 500 pages. The Dylan Thomas, which I showed yesterday, by Weidenfeld and Nicholson, edited and annotated by John Goodby, 2014. Again, a short one, just over 400 pages. Clive James, who I really, really like. I like his essays. I've got his whole collection of books of essays and book reviews, television reviews, some of his novels, his autobiography, and his poetry, which I like as well. This is published by Picador. That's his usual publisher for many, many a year. And this is 2016. It goes to almost 600 pages, so again, another slim volume. Collected poems of Vikram Seth. And I'm not sure where the damage came from the back, because I don't remember that when I got it, as a remainder. I'm familiar with Vikram Seth as a novelist, Suitable Boy and Equal Music. But there's a huge amount of poetry here, so I thought, well, yes, I do want to take a look at it. And I've dipped into it, and I haven't been disappointed. It's published by, as I say, Weidenfeld and Nicholson. Yeah, I think I looked here before. I can't find a specific date for this publication. There's all sorts of dates here, but I would assume it's somewhere post 2011, somewhere 2011 and 2015. Maybe actually after, because I see another book here, 2015. It's referring to, so it's after 2015, but I can't see a date properly on it, and that is just under 700 pages. This is also another author that I'm familiar with and enjoy. I've now come to enjoy some of her poetry. Elizabeth Bishop. This is it's a box set, and this is the prose, and that's the box set that it came in. And there's not much on the back. This is a little right up on the back. The poems. It wasn't prolific. She wasn't a prolific poetess. This is Fair, Strauss, and Garreau. Published 2011, and weighs in at 350 pages or so with the index. And yeah, it's something that I'm sort of learning about her poetry. It says Elizabeth Bishop is one of America's greatest writers, and her art is loved and admired by readers and fellow poets alike. The poems that make up Bishop's small and select body of work displays honesty and humor, grief and acceptance, observing nature and human nature with painstaking accuracy. And the prose is exactly what it says. There's some short stories. It's edited by Lloyd Schwartz. So there's stories and memoirs, essays, some travel, translations, some correspondence, and then early prose essays. So that's another nice little collection there. Do it in the right order. Poetry first, and then prose. Complete verse of Noel Coward, who I really like his verse. They're fun, they're witty. This is edited with commentary by Barry Day, Barry Day does some Woodhouse material as well. I think he's even written a biography of P.G. Woodhouse. Methuen Drama, published 2011. And yeah, just some witty verse in there. Now, let's see. We're at 20 minutes. Let's continue on. I've got stuff everywhere. Oops. Everything's falling down here now. Oh. 3 volumes of the poems of Jonathan Swift by Oxford University Press. These aren't new, but they're new. I don't think there's a newer edition, or at least a complete edition, as these were. This is from first edition, excuse me, 37, then 58, and then 66. And, as I say, edited by Harold Williams. Title page. And they're in the nice yellow jacket, so it's usually you don't see them with jackets. You usually just see the bare, naked, blue buckram cloth. But Jonathas List is someone I dearly, dearly love as a writer, humorist, and essayist, and just all around wit, basically. Now, here's a publisher that has started some. Let's see if I can get. Oh, jeez, dust. Grooter. They have started a series called Library of Chinese Humanities. They're going to go outside of poetry as well, but they're very well curated. They've got Chinese poetry on the one side and the translations on the other. And here is a 6-volume set of the poetry of Dufu. I won't pull them out too much. This came out a few years ago. Look at time. I've got 22 minutes. My phone turns into a pumpkin as it hits 30 minutes. It just shuts down. This was published 2016, and again, it's just all the poetry. But this author was also known as I forget. There's a few names that he's known as, but he's now considered as Dufu. So that's a complete set. That might have been one of the first ones they put out. Then they've got the poetry of Hanshin, Cold Mountain, Scheid, and Finnegan. Nondescript covers, but there's these are what they've published to date. This is poetry of Rowan G. and Zai Kang, translated by Stephen Owen and Wendy Schwartz. And the last volume that I have here, the works of Li Ginzoa. I'm butchering the names, I know, but they're coming out about 2 or 3 volumes per year, give or take. And I have, up to now, been pre-ordering them. This is one thing that I have been buying as new as they come out. Let's see, we might be able to actually finish all this. Only have a few more to go here. Let's put that aside. Philip Larkin, who is quite well known. This is complete poems, edited by Archie Burnett. Kind of interesting cover. It says an entirely new edition brings together all of Philip Larkin's poems in addition to those in collected poems and in early poems and juvenilia. Faber and Faber, 2012. And Clive James was a big fan and I think friend of Philip Larkin. And the jury's still out for me whether I really, really like him or not. There's poems of his that I really, really liked, and others I go, really? But, but I think that's like anybody. There's some things that you like and some you don't. 700 and some pages. And then we got the collected poems of Ted Hughes. I've shown the letters that I've got of Ted Hughes, as well as the biography of Jonathan Bate. This is published by Faber and Faber again, edited by Paul Keegan, and 2003. And it weighs in at 1,300 plus pages, so it's quite prolific. One thing that is remiss of mine, I do have to get Sylvia Plath's poetry, which I've not found an edition that I like yet at the moment. One poet I dearly love, and I will be speaking more of this one at some point. There's not enough time to find a few selections to read now, but it's Wilfred Owen. It's the complete poems and fragments. It was 2 volumes in a slipcase. Very nondescript slipcase. This I bought brand new as soon as I saw it released, or, well, proposed to be released. I pre-ordered. And he's World War I poet, and he's just fantastic. This is edited by John Stallworthy, who has written a biography of him as well. And yeah, just amazing, amazing poet. He died way too young. He died during the war, so that's why there's only a little bit of poetry. And this is sort of all the fragments. It's fun to go through and see the changes that he made, scribbling out lines. It's everything that's sort of left of his writing process. And this was done by Chadon Windus, 2003. Wow. Didn't think it was that long ago. No, it can't be. No, it can't be, because I bought it when I was in the UK here. Again, why do they hide the date? I don't know what date this is, because it's talking about the estate 1983, 2003. And I don't see a date on here. Let's look at volume 1. I'm getting close to the 30-minute mark, so I got to be careful. No date that I can. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it says 2003 revised. 2013. That makes more sense. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I've got piles around me now. I've got to put back on the shelf. And that's just some of my poetry collections, and more newer ones. And I hope you enjoyed it. It is long. If you've waited through this far, then you must be a die-hard poetry fan. So I thank you. And happy reading. Enjoy your poetry. And have a good evening, BookTube. Bye.